No one's building off, no one's saying, hey, I need, 17 offices in downtown Fall River. It's not because Fall River, it's just not the way offices are paid anymore. Even lawyers and architects and those things that used to be the heart of those downtown offices, aren't they? So let's build housing there.
It's just so important that we continue to grow smart within our state.
We're very excited that housing is having its moment. The need has always been there.
The planning and construction of communities that create compact, mixed-use neighborhoods in close proximity.
Transit needs to be frequent and reliable, while housing nearby needs to be affordable.
And thankfully, we have some very interesting examples going on in Rhode Island.
And it can only happen with smart planning and good collaboration.
Good morning. Welcome to our secretary for being here. And also, as a former mayor, I want to give a shout out to all of my mayors who are in the room. If you look at them, they look well rested. It hasn't snowed. That's why they've been able to sleep in a little bit. But it's incredible to start the day today with all of you at this forum for the transit-oriented development. As your general treasurer, I share the same commitment of many of you in this room, the obligation of advancing neighborhood revitalization and economic opportunity for all. When I think of leadership in sustainable growth and economic development, one name immediately comes to mind, and that is the name of my friend and former mayoral colleague, Dan Rivera, an Army veteran, public servant, and now the president and CEO of MassDevelopment. Dan has been guided by his devotion of helping his community. From the moment I met Dan, I knew he was committed to public service with the determination to find solutions to the problems that hold people back in their lives. As the former mayor of Lawrence, Dan was responsible for an economic boom in his community. Dan worked to establish a new record of housing units. These investments in housing triggered significant economic development in Lawrence, whether it was a soaring job creation market or generating a more equitable transit system. The quality of life for Lawrence residents improved tremendously. After he left his role as mayor, Dan continued to find new ways to improve people's lives through his work. At a time when the world was facing the harsh realities of COVID-19 pandemic, Dan was instrumental in assisting Governor Baker in reopening the economy. He was also a key figure in ensuring that Latinos in Massachusetts had a seat at the table when it came to talks on economic prosperity and well-being. As we get ready to hear from Dan, let's take inspiration from his example of being a thoughtful, pragmatic, result-oriented leader. And I always said this to Dan, that once a mayor, always a mayor, and we like to get things done. It brings me great honor to introduce a man who needs no introduction, former mayor of Lawrence, Dan Rivera.
Thank you so much, Mr. Treasurer. It's exciting to be here with you today. I remember all those times we get on the phone and talk about the problems we had, and it's heartening to see that your leadership is well appreciated, and the people of Rhode Island saw fit to put you in this position. It's a hard job to be mayor, and I think about, we have a new lieutenant governor in Massachusetts who also was a former mayor, and I think there's an old saying that says, if you want to get something done, get a mayor to do it. I don't know if that's an old saying or I just made it up, but it sounds pretty good. And there's a lot of mayors and former mayors in the room. It is a particularly interesting cross-section of problems, and I always tell people it's like the job is to make a cake, and you don't get to pick the ingredients. You don't even get to pick the people who are going to cook it. You don't even get to figure out what oven's going to go in. Well, let me tell you something. If it's not a cake when it's over, you're the one that did it. So thank you to the mayor for being former mayor and treasurer Diossa. I really appreciate the support you have for us. For those of you that don't know, MassDevelopment is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Development Finance Agency and Land Bank. And really what that means is that we do commercial and industrial lending to spur development, and we do commercial real estate to spur housing. We do that for jobs and housing and to redevelop communities. We work with businesses, nonprofits, banks across Massachusetts to stimulate the economy. We've been doing it for a long time, and some of the impacts we've had in the last year, 1.7 billion in the Massachusetts economy, 1,700 units of housing either preserved or built, supported or created about 11,000 jobs. We have a staff about 190 professionals of subject matter experts from real estate to finance, bonds, and land use planning. Today, you might even, if you get an opportunity, you can hear from Noah Kurtz, who directs our transformative development program in Massachusetts. He's going to chart really new ways of how we do economic development in Massachusetts, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it in a second. But it is really a pleasure to be here to talk about transit-oriented development. I'm a kid from Lawrence, I'm a Lawrence kid, a project kid, and I'm not really like a policy person. I don't write white papers and things like that. I think about these things in a way that how they impact people. I was raised in public housing, on public assistance, taught in an urban public school system, served in the Army, went to public university, on the GI Bill, bought my first home with a GI home loan. So if you need proof that good public service can change people's lives and create productive citizens, look no further. I am the product of those, maybe not good health policy, but definitely good public policy. So I think it's important for us to kind of think about, sometimes these things become buzzwords: transit-oriented development, equitable development, walkable communities. So let's take a second and close your eyes. Nobody is going to get weird. We're just going to close our eyes. Not a kumbaya moment. Close your eyes. And you picture transit-oriented development in your mind's eye. Picture the house you live in today. Picture that a bus or bus stop is nearby, or a train station is nearby, within walking distance, a block or so away from your front door. Now think that you can get to your job from once you get on that transit, maybe with one transfer on a different mode of transportation, and maybe another short walk gets you to your job. Right? You're there. You do this in a timely manner and reasonable cost. Wouldn't that be nice? Because you think about what you do today. You can open your eyes, sorry. You do that today, and there's 100 different reasons why that doesn't happen. Well, depending on the density of your community, these reasons they vary, right? If you're in a city or an urban center, maybe the bus doesn't go by your house. It's kind of maybe 4 or 5 blocks away. If you're in a neighborhood with single-family homes, your neighbors don't want buses running down their streets. They definitely don't want the trains in the backyard. There's hundreds of reasons why that is, that these things aren't possible. And now I'm not going to try to stand up here, as the good secretary said, with a treatise on how do we fight those battles. I'm not going to enumerate them, and I'm going to lay out a real grand plan to fix it. But to quote Admiral Akbar of the Rebel Alliance in Star Wars, that's a trap. It is really a trap because everybody wants to say, well, when are you going to fix the problem? This thing, the problem, housing, the problem. And the reality lies in a lot of small things, going right at once. So we're going to discuss some of the important ingredients that we have in Massachusetts that have impacted that have led us to some transit-oriented development today. Grossmouth, Rhode Island defines transit-oriented development, and I think the Secretary spoke to it earlier, the planning and construction of communities that create compact mixed-use neighborhoods in close proximity, high-quality transit, so that people can enjoy easy access of housing, jobs, amenity service, all of life's essentials. Were it so easy to say it and do it. But that's the aspiration. And it's a funny thing that we are in this predicament because most modern cities were all founded as center pole cities. And factories were built, and then housing was built around the factory. And then maybe not in the cities, there were places called company towns. it was so important for companies to have good employees that they would build towns. They would build a housing to keep people close. So what's old is new again. And you think about the old brownstones on the bus routes in some of these 1950 movies, the factory yard where mom and dad used to go work. We're trying to get back there. Maybe we're going to do it with a little bit cleaner factories and more diverse workforce and a little bit equitable and more inclusive neighborhoods. Maybe we'll do that at the same time. But I think that's a laudable thing to do. And I think when we got sent home over COVID, people felt like, hey, I do have a home. I have a community. I don't have to travel into the center city. I can do work from there. And when I have a break, I'd like to be able to go get a coffee downtown. And everybody was really surprised that there weren't coffee places downtown. Oh. Thank you. I was concerned that all you could see is the microphone, but I'm a big guy. I should have not thought. Thank you again. Anyhow, this idea of going back to that place where we can all do that has been kind of taking root, especially in Massachusetts. And I think about it as walkability and vibrancy and community. The things that I had when I was a kid. I used to be able to get out of my apartment at the housing project and go to the corner and pick the bus up and go to school. And then after school, go to McDonald's for my job and take the bus back home. When I became mayor, the transit authority, was running adequately. And so what we did notice is that some of those things that we had as kids had gone away and hadn't been really changed in a long time. The routes had been there for a long time, and they had gone away because some of the people had left. And the attention of the transit authority also had kind of went in different directions. So you could get a bus in Lawrence, in downtown Lawrence, and go anywhere outside of Lawrence, to the mall, to the beach, to the other communities. But you couldn't get on a bus in Lawrence and go from one neighborhood to another. You couldn't go from the poorest census tract in the Commonwealth to that business district downtown to go to the healthcare center. And so, I think you could draw like a real nefarious idea, so that must have been a plan. It's just how things end up being. Bureaucracies get a life of their own. So we pointed it out to the administrator, and he said, well, what do you want to do about it? I'm like, well, can we do a circular that goes through every major city in downtown Lawrence? And he said, sure, if you want to pay for it. We wanted to pay for it. We had to pay for it because otherwise, a mom with her kid who wanted to go to her daycare or to go to her job or go to a healthcare appointment had to go do the spoken in center thing, in and out, in and out, in and out to get to where she wanted to go. Now she can get on Lawrence Street. It may be taking a long time because it goes in a circle. But, it's not your dad's bus. I don't know if the guy from the RTA is still here. If you haven't been on a bus recently, you got to get on a bus. I did this thing. I would do office hours on the bus in the summertime. It was a trick. They're really air conditioned and it's really nice. And nobody wants to get on the bus. So you be like, nice pictures of me on the bus waiting for people to talk to me. No one will get on the bus. But got to get on the bus because it's really, it's not like I said, your grandfather's buses. But I tell you that story because I think it talks about a couple of the ingredients necessary for transit-oriented development. And a piece of it, that last part is really important. We do have to pay for it. I know we're used to going to Walmart and getting air fryers for $29.99. I know we're used to, anybody camp? No campers? Really? Rhode Island, nobody camps? You used to pay like $600 for a tent, a good tent. But that tent will last you a long time. And when it rained, you know what happened? You stay dry. Go get a tent today for $100. And that's all you can find either. And every time it rains, you know what you do? You get wet. So I'm a big fan of paying for what you get for, and for the policymakers here, please, the grantification of solutions is a bad road. Because everybody's then always looking for free money. And the problem with free money is it's not always there, and it's not always where you need it to be. But when you pay for a thing, we paid for the circular, and it's going there today, and it's the most used bus route in the city of Lawrence, and we paid for that. And honestly, nobody really felt it because it was cents on the dollar of an infrastructure that was already built. So ingredients, an organization willing to be entrepreneurial. The administrator said yes. The bureaucracy be damned. He didn't say, send me to some lawyer. He didn't send me to some procurement process. He said, just pay me, we'll do it. You need executive leadership, willing to be brave. Because, by the way, there's no votes in stuff like this. Elected officials will tell you, permitting housing units will not equal votes on election day. The number one thing will happen is some people will be angry about it. You will definitely lose votes. So you need executive leadership that's willing to be brave, and then you need the investments. We have a unique ecosystem in support of TOD in Massachusetts. We're fortunate to be home to a unique set of state agencies, quasi-state public agencies, planning regional agencies, nonprofits, and the like, and they're all rowing in the same direction to transit-oriented development. We are proud to be one of these organizations under the direction of the state's Executive Office of Economic Development. Just to name a few of the ones that we have in Massachusetts, Department of Housing and Community Development. Our sister agency to MassDevelopment is Mass Housing Partnership, Mass Inc., and a litany of alphabet soup other ones that we have, of which, CDCs are one of the most important pieces. If you don't have CDCs in your communities, you got to get some growing, because they are going to do the type of development that the market's just not going to do. You can get some pushback. The market will tell you they'll do a housing unit for $150,000 a unit, and that's maybe in some of these places that aren't in the center of the city. And then the CDCs will say, well, we can only do it for $250,000, $300,000 a unit. You say, Dan, that don't make any sense. It only makes sense because we desperately need the housing. And so the state has to pay a premium on them in places the market just doesn't want to play. And then the market will complain that you're giving money to the nonprofits and not to them. The difference is that they're doing the work that we need them to do in the places we need them to do it. The market will take care of themselves. And that's one of the things we do in MassDevelopment. We try to develop where the market's not. We won't do affordable housing. We'll support some of the affordable housing in gateway cities, but we'd rather do some market rate housing in gateway cities, because no one is doing market rate housing in gateway cities. And you need mixed income. You need mixed income because 100% affordable, under 60% AMI is a housing project. And we know we need diverse incomes, diverse peoples, the diverse settings for a good community to grow. So in that event, we want to be where the market's not. So what I tell people in the suburbs is, I'll help you do affordable housing. Well, we want to do these market rate housing. The market rate housing will take care of itself in the Andovers and in the Concords and places like that. They'll be fine. If they want housing, they'll go and they'll buy it anytime. So being able to do this, CDCs are the best types of organizations. So having those organizations are important. We have tools in Massachusetts that help do this, get these things accomplished. Legislation is boring. These policies are very boring. Getting them passed are very boring, but they're super impactful. Super impactful, I'm going to tell you that. A period in one sentence or an extended geographic description in another sentence can mean the world on development. I think everyone was shocked. Everyone outside the legislature and the governor in Massachusetts was shocked when we passed the MBTA communities law, making sure that certain communities who had an MBTA stop had to have a zone for multi-use housing, because no one had been expecting it to pass. But that type of stuff is very important. So in Massachusetts, we have things like that, 40R, 40S, statutes that provide financial incentives to implement smart growth zoning districts across the Commonwealth. We have the MassWorks infrastructure program that's grants to help people build. You gonna fix my mic too? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a little gun shy now. It's okay. So MassWorks is a very important one because it says to developers, hey, if you want to do this units of housing and this commercial development, we'll fix the pipe in the street, we'll fix the electricity in the street, We'll fix the roadway. It gets real creative. I think one of the MassWorks grants ended up doing a river walk, and they're like, well, why'd you do the river walk? Well, we needed to take that parcel, and we needed to make that parcel a very important part of the development that was happening on the river, because the infrastructure was so expensive that it was going to turn the pro forma upside down on the private developer. And he said, well, that's a lot of money to just do, to help that place. We got housing out of it, we got jobs out of it, and the whole area became a more livable, workable space. So MassWorks is a very important part of it. We have housing development in this incentive program. It's called HDIP, and that allows, again, we have folks here that do large-scale affordable housing, and that's an important part of the mix. But in downtowns, any mayor who has downtown will tell you, we would love to attract, again, this diverse set of housing units. So who pays for market rate housing? HDIP in Massachusetts pays to put market rate housing in downtowns. And I always tell people, they're like, what's the magic trick? How do you get people downtown? I want people to come down, do coffee, all this stuff. What's this magic trick on the development piece? How do we bring back our downtowns? And most downtowns have a storied past. It used to be a time where everybody would meet down there, get coffee or soda, or buy their prom dress or their flowers downtown. You can get back there. You absolutely can get back there. It's really easy. Build housing downtown. Oh, Dan, that sounds like a trick. It's not a trick. If you got to go home there, you're going to do stuff there. If you wake up there on a Saturday, you're going to go do something downtown. Well, we don't want to teach those kids. We don't, there's an infrastructure we have to build. You got to build that stuff anyway. Those kids are in your schools anyway. They're going to be in somebody's school. And so I would encourage you to think, when you think about these programs, make it so that you're incentivizing people to build in their downtowns. Also, I'm not sure outside of, trying to polite way to say things. Outside of office parks, no one's building off. No one's saying, "Hey, I need 17 offices in downtown Fall River." It's not because Fall River. It's just not the way offices are paid anymore. Even lawyers and architects and those things that used to be the heart of those downtown offices, aren't they? So let's build housing there. You're still going to need the first floor for businesses, the flower shops, the pizzerias, that stuff. But you need people to consume that. And we had a big argument with a couple people downtown Lawrence, and which is why I always tell people, talk to people in the language they understand. My economic development person said, listen, we're going to help you by bringing you an anchor tenant. Your service is going to be consumed by an anchor tenant. He's talking about all these, and the guy's like, are you saying that I'm not important? No, it's not that you're not important. It's that the people that you need to consume your product, the people you want to walk in your door, they don't live here anymore. Let me bring people here for you. But what about the parking? Listen, if anybody, no one's investing in parking garages. Everybody wants to build them. No, we're making all these cars electric and doing electric stands. We're going to have to walk, and much to my chagrin, I'm a big guy and I don't really love to walk. We're going to have to walk a lot more. And so having folks downtown is a critical piece of that. We talked about key leadership as a thing to have, executive leadership. Governors, mayors, town and city managers, the power of executive leadership to focus the machine of government on all the levels for this effort is crucial. There's a lie they tell mayors, you can do whatever you want, you're the mayor. That's a very dangerous thing, because you can, but you can get in trouble. And I got to tell you that here in Providence. I didn't think that was going to go over as good, so I'm sorry. But that's a part of the thing. It's not that. It's just that if you did want to spend 4 years ensuring that one thing got done, you can do that. One thing in education, one thing in development. It's just that power of executive leadership. And then people want to do, because a whole group of people said they wanted you to lead them. So including the town and city managers, you went through a whole process. People believe in your leadership. You have to use that political capital. You were the ones that spent all that time going to school, becoming city manager, town manager, or knocking on those doors that summer to become the mayor, or going across the Commonwealth, across the state to become a constitutional officer. It's important to use that political capital to impact these things. And so we were very fortunate that we had that in Massachusetts. The former governor made housing a priority for him and for a Republican governor in a blue state during some of the most contentious fights between Republicans and Democrats. We were so blessed to have a governor who said housing was a priority. Understanding that the individuals and communities of color were impacted the hardest with this housing crisis. In late 2017, the governor carried out a multi-year effort to better enable municipalities to do the work they needed for zoning. Signed into law the economic development bill that included housing choice zone reform. I don't know if that's the case here. I probably should have looked at it before I came. But before the housing choice law passed in Massachusetts, you needed a supermajority to have a housing development pass in Massachusetts. So you go to zoning, 9-member board, you get 6. That sounds like a majority, right? You win. No, you don't win. You need 7. You need 7 because in the laws of the Commonwealth, you needed a supermajority. Today, because of the passing of that law, 6 will win the day. It's still hard to get 6. I don't want to, it's still hard to get 6. But 6 is a lot easier to do than a supermajority. The legislation also included what I talked about earlier, this MBTA communities, to have at least one zoning district. If you had an MBTA stop or MBTA communities, which means it's not only just having an MBTA spot, people who put money into the MBTA system, people who are forced to put money into the MBTA system have to have this zone in their community. At least one that has a zoning district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted as a right to encourage a transit-oriented development. They issued the guidelines in 2021. They engaged in a robust public process that ended in March 22, and in August of 2022, they put out all the rules. Today, as we sit here today, they actually just did a couple articles in the Globe, if you guys get that. 171 out of the 175 communities are currently in compliance with the new law. That's a big deal. It's a big deal. I mean, there's still 4 out there, but I'll wait on those 4 and focus on the 171, and let's get them all they need to get the stuff done. We have a new governor, Maura Healey, also very committed to the work of housing and transit-oriented development. She's going to establish for the first time in a generation a housing secretary, likely come on board this summer, dividing the previous structures of the Economic Development Office and Housing Office together, and really elevating the issue to a cabinet-level position focused on this matter. So we think we're going to continue on that way, along that way. A little secret sauce. So you have executive leadership, you got vision, you got the organizations, you got the other piece is that you need the developers. And we are very blessed to have a lot of really good large-scale developers that can do both market rate and affordable housing units. But we're going to be honest, at 500-unit housing units projects, 600 units, 300 units, they're hard, and they're going to come once every 3 or 4 years. But you need action, and you need stuff now to get that stuff done. And what I say to you today is, there are people in your community that can do that. You have to find small-scale developers that can build mid-size housing redevelopments or developments, either stick up or redevelop old housing from 6 units to 75 units. Y'all know David Ortiz? Y'all know David Ortiz. Home runs. Home runs, home runs, home runs. Those big development units are home runs. They're great, and they have a huge impact. They win the game a lot. Let's get the guy on base, move the runner over. Get the guy on base, move the runner over. For those non-baseball people, that's how you can score a run without ever hitting the baseball. You can lean into the pitch and get hit by the pitch and get put on base, and you can run and be marked as a home run. the government we have to lean in and take some hits so that we can get some of these base hits. And the people in your community are really able to do that. These are men and women who made their lives and their fortunes and their community your communities. They know the local culture, they have street credibility, they know the local political class, they might even sit on the board of the bank or the credit union. Maybe they're a successful real estate agent, maybe they're a beloved restaurant family. Find these people, talk to them about investing in housing in your downtowns. Again, 6 units to 75 units. You piece 5 or 6 of those together, that's a lot of housing. And what you'll see happening is that then it'll become a little bit of competition. And the way I try to explain it to people is these two similar statements about the same housing unit development happening in a coffee shop downtown. So you're in a coffee shop downtown, one guy says to the other guy, hey, how do you feel about that 100-unit housing development they're putting up over on Prospect Hill? Some developer from Boston is trying to get that passed. You can fill in the rest of that conversation, right? How about this one? Hey, did you hear Jose Mendez's kid is going to build some housing over there behind their restaurant on Prospect Hill? Behind the restaurant? Yeah. David? The kid who won that football game we all love? Saved the restaurant, took over for his dad? Do you feel the difference? Get 5 of those people. Encourage them to develop, invest in their community, build the housing. I think that's an important piece. We have them all across the Commonwealth. We had them in Lawrence, a guy who came to the United States from the Dominican Republic, built a living on fixing people's cars, and just finished a 200-unit development in Lawrence. I think probably about 25 years after coming to this country. Encourage that. How am I doing with time? They told me I had a ton of time, but I thought I should. All right, well, I'm gonna stop.
We're gonna save the questions for the panel.
All right.
So you got a few more minutes there.
All right, because I know it's early too. Not enough coffee to listen to some dude talking up here. Anyway, I think those are the important things I want to tell about. I got to talk to you about Transformative Development Initiative that we have in Massachusetts that we run through the Gateway Cities. And this is a program that basically says, how do we fix the problem in the communities? We're not trying to fix all the problems in Lowell. What can we fix in a 5-block area in Lowell? What can we fix in a 5-block area in Brockton? And then we put a person there, a planner by trade, mid-career development person, for 3 years. And then we give them tools like crowdsource funding, equity dollars to invest in a project, an enterprise, a housing development plan. It's basically anybody who's ever worked in planning offices in communities know that you're like a one-armed paper hanger. You're trying to report to HUD, and you're trying to report to the state-level housing people, and maybe you got an EPA grant. You got to do all this is basically you're never out on the street trying to get people together to do something big. We've put one person in 13 communities in the Commonwealth, really evangelizing transit-oriented development, building communities, and you're going to hear from Noah Hertz, who is the person who really did that for us. That was a $23.7 million investment over 3 years, and we think it's worth every dollar. We do have grant programs that subsidize this effort through the One Stop for Growth web portal, a system for applying for all of our state development grants. There's about 12 development grants. I talked about MassWorks. We do 6 of them: brownfields, redevelopment, site readiness program, underutilized property program, the collaborative workspace program, real estate services, technical assistance, and Commonwealth Places. Just to talk about one, and by the way, all those programs together we put on the street last year, $29.6 million of grants on the street. Very important, very impactful. Underutilized property program, just to describe that one for you. I like to call it the ugly property program. Everybody has one building in your community that has been a mess, abandoned, boarded up, that everybody walked by. I think, not to call you out, in Brockton, I think about George Foreman's old, Myron Hagler's old gym. We're going to do housing there. But people walk by these storied communities, these buildings in your communities, and they've been blocked forever. You have one in your community. I don't know what it is because I don't live in your community. We had 3 or 4 in Lawrence. In Haverhill, there was one that was the Woolworths. It was closed longer than it was ever open. So we do a grant program, $800,000, as low as $350,000, $800,000. On occasion, we'll do $1 million grant to make that a marketable piece of property, to get it on the market, get it sold, get it developed. The cool thing is that sometimes you don't need that much money. Sometimes you just need sprinklers, or you just need to fix the roof, or remove a thing like that. So the grants are important. I talked about moving away from it, but the grants do help in that sense. And there's a lot of stuff going on that you can piece together. We like to call it the capital stack. It's an alphabet soup of people who have helped. And so if you've ever gone to a groundbreaking, they spend like 20 minutes talking about every agency that has helped. I think that's very important because all that money really comes in there. So I would encourage folks to think about this not in any one cookie cutout way. A, B, and C has to happen. No. It became a really dirty word to talk about exotic financial transactions after the housing crash. But you have to build exotic financing transactions to get this housing built, to get this stuff done, and push people to get that thing done. The last thing I'll say, and make a pitch for starting small. I'm a big believer. I just talked about this base hit thing. Don't be patient. Make change through small steps. What I like to call audacious movement. We didn't want to make all of the Lawrence Transit Authority free. We made three routes free, fare free. And it made all the world of a difference. Of course, now everybody else wants it free, but we don't have to have it. Those routes don't have to be free. The 3 that we made downtown went through the most needy parts of the community. And when we did a survey of the riders, half of them were going to school or class, either the public schools or going to a training program, or they were going to work. All of them making less than $50,000 a year. Damn, who lives on $50,000 a year? In Lawrence, you can live for less than $50,000 a year, especially if you're jammed up with people. So start small, but make it big, small stuff. No, it's not. I'm not saying paint one room. I'm saying let's do 6 units of housing. Let's just do one thing. Let's do a little bit. And I think if you do that, small audacious steps, it catches people's attention. Anybody watch The Walking Dead? Everybody watch that. I don't watch it. It's just too much stress in my life. It was big when I was mayor, so I was every day for me is someone's gonna die. So I didn't need to watch it at home. I had stress in my life. But there's always a moment where nothing's happening, and then somebody makes a noise, and everybody's "Huh?" And then they'll go. That's what I'm talking about. You don't got to say, "Hey, zombies, come over here." You just got to make the smallest of audacious noise, and then we can all just walk to our bus and get to our jobs in a short time for small money. Who knows? That's my story. I'm sticking to it.